Welcome to the Who's Left podcast, a show about Indiana politics, history, and culture from an unapologetically leftist perspective. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers. I'm broadcasting from Bloomington, and you have joined us on a very special night. We're now 3.5 years into the Who's Left project with over 130 episodes in our official canon, plus specials and the Sunday show, probably nearing 200 altogether. But tonight, we welcome our first international guest. We're headed across the pond for a conversation with British author Metin Pekin, whose first book, Breaking Democracy's Chains, Freeing and Fortifying Democracy Against Hidden Capture, was released in March. From his official biography, quote, Pekin earned his BA in political economy from the University of Greenwich before becoming a serial entrepreneur, founding and growing several companies from the ground up. Combining academic insight with real world experience, Pekin noticed a troubling pattern. No matter which party won, inequality deepened, surveillance expanded, whistleblowers were punished, and wars continued. Reformers who tried to make real change were pushed aside, while party insiders controlled who could even compete for power. In his Gold Award winning first book, Pekin makes a powerful, well researched case that true democracy can only emerge by breaking the grip of political parties and returning power to the people. Now, given that the UK is 5 hours ahead of the eastern US, we recorded this interview Saturday. If you're watching live, I'll be here with you in the comments section throughout, but before I roll tape, we could really use your support. This is an independent media project. We don't paywall content, we don't charge candidates for interviews, and we certainly don't have billionaire benefactors. Only individuals like you keep this thing going. It is a foundational principle of Who's Left and the Progressive Indiana Network that we refuse to hide important information behind paywalls in the middle of a political crisis, even if that's not in our financial best interest. So please, if you find value in this work, go to progressiveindiana.net and subscribe at the paid level. It's only $5 a month or $50 a year to help us build the infrastructure that will pop the right wing media bubble in our state. And while a paid subscription is the best way to help us grow and sustain this project, you can help in other ways by liking and sharing on social media, commenting, leaving reviews, providing feedback, and forwarding our content to your people. Get us when you can. Mostly, we just want you here in this community of Hoosiers dedicated to making this state and its government work for all of us, not just the elite few. Please join us. Follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at whosleft.us and on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Who's Left. Progressive Indiana Network's handle is the full spelled out name on most sites, but on Blue Sky and TikTok, it's PIN Indiana. Please help us grow with a follow wherever you're at. Tell the others. Let's build a radically democratic Indiana together. Now, here is my interview with Metin Pekin. I will see you on the other side. All right, here we are with Metin Pekin. Welcome to the Who's Left podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, listen, I really appreciated your book, and I find it very timely at this point in time. And I want to lead with a little story from right here in Indiana as a jumping in. We're recording this on Saturday, June 20th. And it was exactly 2 weeks ago. I was at the Indiana State Democratic Party convention. It is no surprise to anybody that I was supporting Blythe in that convention for our Secretary of State.
Yep.
She was the grassroots progressive candidate, and her opponent, Bayh, is a legacy son of a political dynasty family in our state, and he was supported by a lot of big money from private equity, from school privatizers, from fossil fuels, the kind of folks that Democrats, generally are opposed to, and yet here we are, and the argument going into the race for Bayh seemed to be, well, number one, name recognition. Number two, he can raise a lot of money, and you need money to win. And that is sort of the party establishment line. And Indiana is, a conservative red state. We need to hew more conservative and less progressive. So To no one's surprise, Bayh won the race among delegates about 60-40. And, the entire way the candidate was chosen in the first place is by 2,000 people at a state convention, not even in a general primary amongst all Democratic voters. So, like, a slice of a slice of a slice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that is a very illustrative example of what you were talking about in the way that parties sort of determine our politics far before general elections, even and before anybody even gets into government. And so, with that, I will shut up.
Uh, Thank you. And it's a, like you said, I think it's a timely discussion. This. Uh, let's start off with this. We all feel frustrated because we vote, and we're no different across the pond here. And outcomes never change. And that's because of what you've experienced pretty much in Indiana. Because the choice we get when in November, when you go to the polling box, when the Hoosiers go for voting, they will already have a curated choice. They will not have that Blythe Potter on their ballot card. They will not be able to vote for it because, like you've said, a small, tiny percentage of people eliminated her delegates. Now, that's not democratic, but there's just so many things about the party system that's not democratic. It's not unique to Democratic Party. Republican Party is not much different. So every one of us, when we go to the polling booth, we've got a curated choice. We haven't got a real choice. That's the illusion of choice. We are endorsing managers of the system rather than having a real choice. So that is a problem, and that's the frustration. That's why people say, well, they've got voter apathy and people are not interested. No, far from it. I have stopped voting as well because I've come to the conclusion to say, well, my vote doesn't make any difference, which is wrong. Put my hand up. But you feel frustrated because, here we have equivalent of your Democrats and conservatives. We have Labour and Conservative. You have Republicans. And they both have shifted. They have both shifted towards this money funding, if you like, and they look after their interest. In UK, what we used to have, we had Labour solidly representing the working class, and we had the Conservatives representing the business class. So there was a bit of a true, in inverted commas, representation of different classes. But has gone. That's gone. Because with Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, once Soviet Union had collapsed, the new liberal policies were popular. They've basically killed all the industry. All the industry had gone abroad to China and elsewhere. So, and trade unions were broken down here, especially the mining trade unions in UK. So the primary source of funding for the Labour Party was the trade union subscriptions or memberships. And once that trade union has gone, it meant that Tony Blair had rolled out red carpet for Murdochs and like, and he started courting with the business donors and what have you, because they needed the money. So coming back to the point that you've made, the problem you have in Indiana is not unique to Indiana. That frustration is across the US and the wider West. We feel it here. Yes, systems vary slightly, but the overall structure is pretty much the same. parties monopolized representation. They filter choice, and they're accountable to the donors, not to the people. That's the problem. So we've got a structural problem, and my point in breaking democracy's chains is that minor tweaks isn't going to solve this problem that we're facing, or we've been facing for decades now. I mean, you could go back all the way to the beginning of the Declaration of Independence and Federalist Papers. Even the founding fathers were against factions and political parties. They predicted we'll be here. There were prophecies, and
Yep.
here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. They warned us, and yet here we are. And it's ironic that we have this reverence in the United States for our founding fathers, but only selectively pay attention to the warnings that they gave us. Now, so I want to talk about the way the party system has shifted. They've especially in our two countries, they've consolidated at least the major parties around corporate economics, and so we'll fight over. They call it culture wars here. I don't know if it's the same thing there.
Yeah,
We fight over
same.
things like LGBTQ rights. We think about immigration. Certainly, I know is a major point of contention on both sides of the pond. At least in the UK, I understand there are multiple parties, and we have minor parties here, but at least over there, like Reform, that's a far right party. And the Greens are at least you can at least get elected to parliament as as a member of one of those parties. I understand. John Oliver had a segment on the UK elections this past weekend, talking.
Yeah,
There's an even further right party than Reform. So
correct.
which it doesn't have necessarily electoral power yet, but is viable enough in the consciousness to sort of pull Reform and pull the Tories even further to the right. In the United States, I feel like it is impossible to to get power outside of the two party system. Um, Here in Indiana, our state constitution actually has the two major parties codified into law. So
Yeah,
it's really hard to work outside of those systems. Now, uh, you know, on in the UK, in multi-party democracies, there are other avenues. I think here, a lot of folks I know, their idea, their first inclination is, okay, well, let's form another party. Let's form a third party. Let's form a minor party and try to get uh, access that way. In Indiana, we have the Libertarian Party. They have ballot access. They've managed to maintain a minor threshold for the last 20 years or so, where they are on the ballot every year. Now they never get more than like 5% of the vote, precisely because of institutional bias toward the two major parties. Friends of mine are attempting to form a Socialist Party of Indiana. They've got a lot of hurdles to clear in order to get that. They've got signature thresholds they have to meet. There's an independent candidate attempting to run in that very Secretary of State's race I brought up at the beginning. Again, same thing. He's got to get a number of signatures. They have to verify that all the signatures are valid. They have to come from each part of the state. Um, your central argument is not that we need more parties. It's actually that we need to eliminate parties entirely. So, can
and
you tell us how you came to that?
sure. I think it's probably one of the most important points that we can cover here. I want to go back to the founding fathers and start with that. John Adams, I think he said something along the lines of, "There's nothing I dread as much or so much as division of the republic into two great parties." I think Thomas Jefferson mentioned something about if I could not go to heaven, but without a party, I would not go there at all. So let's fast forward. Let's fast forward to here: more parties, no parties. So your viewers need to grasp this. Are they frustrated with the current system? As the founding fathers have warned us, that George Washington warned us that ambitious, unprincipled, cunning men through parties will subvert the will of the people. So are we frustrated with the system? I would say most people are frustrated with the system. Because effectively you have in Indiana one party system, because Republicans have been there for a long time.
Yes.
And I can understand the frustration for people to say, well, look, I don't like both parties. I want to vote for somebody else. I want another party. I want a socialist party. I want a green party. I want something else. And that's perfectly understandable. If you think about it, parties are broad tents. They bundle together policies that none of the voters agree with it entirely. And within the party tent, you have the moderates, you have the extremists, and you have all the shades in between within the party itself. So it's a very broad camp. So it's understandable for people to say we need more parties because we're frustrated with the system. We're frustrated with those two parties. So, and apparently 45% of American adults do not associate with either major party. Independents, 45% are independents, according to surveys. So it's natural for people to say more parties. But the problem with more parties is visible everywhere. So look at two countries that American viewers may be familiar with. Look at Netherlands. They have up to about 20 parties, and that gives you a reasonably good choice. But they couldn't form a government for 7 months because everybody gets a little portion of the votes. They have to then sit and debate and negotiate coalitions. And it produces weak government and yet weaker opposition to hold government to scrutiny. People are familiar with Israel. How many parties are in current government with Netanyahu? Far religious, far right people propping him up. I mean, some of those guys are like psychopaths, the Ben-Gavirs and whatever you, Smotrich and whatever you. So they're in a mainstream party and they have disproportionate influence on Israeli government. And this is not for Israeli people, this is for the Israeli government, because there are a lot of Israeli people not happy with this government, but there's not a lot they can do about it because he's keep declaring wars everywhere and whatever. But let's kind of not sidetrack and come back. More parties, as we can see in the example of Netherlands and in example of Israel, brings more problems, not solutions. They come with more problems.
Yeah. So, okay. How do we go about eliminating party? Like, how would having no parties change this, and how would we form a government in that way?
Sure. It's actually pretty simple. Now, you might say, well, if it's simple, why don't we do it? Well, because nobody in power lets go of the power out of decency. Power is addictive. They want control. So they won't let things go. So the simple process will be this. I mean, we can talk about it at state level because US is very different to the UK. You have 50 states and then the federal system. But let's talk about the state of Indiana. First, elect the House. I think you have 100 House representatives, if my
Correct,
reading
yeah.
is right. Yeah. So first vote these representatives without a party label, without a party filter, without, in case of Blythe Potter, not 2,000 delegates deciding, 2,500 deciding who's going to be representing the party. Let's go for a full democratic system and a full choice. A full choice. And the full choice will be as follows. Scott, you want to be a candidate. Okay, fine. And Potter wants to be a candidate, and Beau wants to be a candidate. Somebody else, we've got loads of people that wants to be candidates and represent District 81, let's say. Fine. If you can get X number of signatures from your local voters for your district, you qualify. Let's say 0.5%. You qualify as a serious candidate.
So a reasonably
Exactly.
small number. It doesn't have to be like half the people in the district.
No. This is to just kind of, if you like, do away with time wasters and people who wants to be funny hat representatives, kind of a thing. Just kind of make it a realistic contest. So you come down to, let's say, 6 candidates, realistic number. And then we want these candidates to tell us their pledges, whether they're kind of a Republican values, whether they're liberal values, whether they have democratic values. No party labels, but we will know from their pledges where they stand on immigration, where they stand on border control, where they stand on abortion, where they stand on redistricting, and so on and so forth. And that can be on a common government website for that district, that we can go and look at the 6 and say, well, Scott stands for this, Potter stands for this, and so on and so forth. And you could even, because let's call a spade a spade. Not everybody is politically educated. Not every voter is educated. And, I don't want to digress on that one, but there is a great book by Liliana Mason of how parties have polarized the whole nation into two great mega identities by fusing political identities with cultural identities and creating this mega identity. So we are very divided. Let's kind of come back to the system. So we're first electing the House representatives through a reasonable number of signatures to get serious candidates, and then we know their top pledges on their websites, and we can even carry that onto the ballot paper. When we go to the ballot box, I know what John stands for, what Scott stands for, what Metin stands for, so I can then vote for that person. So now we've got the House with 100 representatives, independent of everybody else. Bit like the caucuses, the House gets together, chooses a temporary speaker, and then we're now going to choose the governor for the state. So anybody who wants to be nominated for a governor is not going through the party mechanisms. It's free of party label, but they will also need some sort of a backing from our representatives in the House. So let's say number is out of thin air 10. And then through round of voting in the House, debates and voting, the candidates with the least number of votes gets eliminated, and then they support others. We narrow the list down to 2 finalists. Those 2 finalists then go to the statewide election, like the Republicans and Democrat candidates do. The winner becomes the governor. The runner-up becomes the minority leader or opposition leader, whatever you want to call it, and mandated by the people. First mandated by our representatives, then mandated by the full voter. So you're going to expect moderates and people with the broadest support through our representatives, and the second by the people voting, by the voters, who's here is deciding who's going to be the governor. And then we've got somebody mandated to scrutinize the governor. So now you've got a structure that parties were providing. You've got independent representatives in the House. Senate can follow the same procedure. You've got independent governor, and you've got independent minority leader, and you've got basically the scrutinization of the governor is left to the House. Is that and the Senate? Is that correct? Am I?
Yes.
Yeah. So
most of the American states have the structure of government that replicates the federal system with the House
correct.
and the Senate. I think
Exactly.
Nebraska is different, but yeah.
Exactly. So in the current circumstances, you have House and Senate that's Republican. You've got a governor that's Republican. I mean, in another state, it's the other way around. It's Democrats. But one side is kind of invincible. One party, one side feels invincible, and the other side feels invisible under the current system. So
yeah, and then they get in power and draw the rules to further entrench their power through things like redistricting. Yeah.
100%. And once they're in there, you can't get them out of there. So no party system does away with all these problems, because you've got independent representatives now. So the democracy doesn't become majority rule. It becomes, well, we've got a governor with a broad mandate, and legislation goes or policies go to the House to be scrutinized in committees and so on and so forth. And those MPs, representatives, forgive me, we call them MPs, members of parliament. Those representatives then are accountable to us. Becomes, let's say, our representative for District 50 or 80 or 81 betrays their voters. Without any fear, in next election, they can get rid of that representative and put somebody else in without fear of letting other side in. Because we now have an ultimate choice, much more than having 10 or 20 parties, because we've now got 100 different choices to choose our representatives, and without any problem get rid of them in next cycle if they don't behave, if they betray us. So we're dispersing the power. Now, when you have the governor of one party and you have the House belonging to the same party, the Senate belonging to the same party, it becomes absolute power. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. It goes to gerrymandering, it goes to all sorts of things to strengthen their grip on the system, on power.
And so, you've described a phenomenon I think that will be familiar to a lot of Hoosiers and folks, across the country and even across the pond that's familiar. And what we have is, you mentioned, a representative betrays their constituents, or they do something their constituents don't like. And a lot of times we keep sending them back, not because we like them, but because we don't like the other guy. We have this negative partisanship, and it's not even brand loyalty. It's like, I hate the other brand.
100%, and that's not accidental. That's deliberate. Because what you've got to look at is that on issues that matter to the public, austerity, surveillance, foreign wars, what's the difference between Republicans and Democrats? I know you're strongly Democrat. There's hardly any difference. There's hardly any daylight between them. Well,
I don't know about that.
But let me kind of say this. Let me say this, and then please come in. I don't mind. I've got thick skin. Criticize me. challenge me on this one. Bush senior, then junior, and whatever, you started that war in Iraq. The junior W. Bush, George W. Bush.
Yep.
And in UK, we had a democratic government, or Democrat equivalent, Labour government, Tony Blair. He was the left, Bush was the right, and they both went to war in Iraq, foreign war, under false pretenses, because they were accountable to the same elite donor system, same military industrial complex, same fossil fuel companies. They were getting money from the same special interest groups. They were ascended to power through these party mechanisms and through these donors. So on cultural, there is big differences between conservatives and the Labour, and in your part of the world, Republicans and Democrats. There is cultural differences, yes. But the key issues, war continued under Bush, under Yugoslavia was bombed under Democrats, I think it was, Libya, you name it, Barack Obama, Biden, it never ended. So, and now Trump. So whether it's the left or the right, the wars continue. What happened with Julian Assange? That surveillance. I mean, that saga continued for so long. And everybody, instead of punishing the whistleblowers to say, well, hang on a minute, this is betrayal of American people. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be surveilling American people at home. They punished the journalism. And that continued under both governments. When the crash happened in 2008, what banks were vilified for a month, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and then whole media attention turned to people to say you've got to, lecturing them to be responsible, to tighten the belts and take austerity, while they spent 700 billion, to the tune of 700 billion, bailing out these banks. So, and that continued under Obama too. So tell me this. What is the difference then between left and right when it comes to these key policies, key issues? Because the wars are affecting everyone's life, as we've seen with the Iran war. Surveillance affects every one of us. Austerity affects every one of us. Yes, other cultural policies do, but not as much as these key issues. So what I'm saying is the parties have been captured by the same power centers. And if you have more parties, that system does not change. Take British system, Nigel Farage. Yes, he's popular now because of the immigration problem. But guess who finances him? A crypto billionaire. And he's given him personally £5 million, like a $6-7 million personally. And that is not declared. So what we are saying, the parties are a machine and they're a perfect host for the money. Money seeks influence, and Nigel Farage is known to be the leader. So the money goes to him and basically compromises him. Whereas under the proposed system, you don't know who's going to be the governor. You don't know who's going to be the president. There's no party to capture. When you capture a party, bosses, you capture the whole block of representatives. And we've got this whipping system that they tell our representatives how to vote. So this is why it's the party system that's the problem. Yes, I come from a working background. I have voted Democrats equivalent up until Iraq war. Then I've switched to the conservatives, your Republican equivalent. Then I gave up on those because, came David Cameron and he bombed Libya. Now we're sitting here and saying, well, in all honesty, it's worth mentioning here, your president and your vice president, at every opportunity, is saying England is being swamped, it's being taken over, they need to control their borders, all these refugees, their culture is changing. And that's kind of being echoed by our politicians, like so Farage. He takes
Yep.
Trump as being his role model. And even the conservatives and Rupert Lowe, who's restore Britain, kind of even further right.
Worse, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm saying to them, well, hang on a minute, guys, hang on a minute, just hear me out. Where did these refugees come from in Europe? Well, if you go back to 80s, we've supported Saddam Hussein as West, collective West, UK, Europe, US, because we saw Iran as a bigger threat. For an 8-year war with Iran, we had massive wave of refugees. Then we've applied sanctions to Saddam Hussein. I mean, we turned the other way when he was using chemical weapons on Kurds and the Iranians aside. Then came the sanctions. Then came the Gulf War. Then came sanctions. Then came the actual Iraq War when Bush and Blair went in and, according to some estimate, killed about 1 million people. And so many American sons and daughters lost their lives tragically. So many came back traumatized and really didn't get the respect and the looking after they deserve. And there was no weapons of mass destruction. They knew that all along. There wasn't any. And then came the Syria Operation Timber Sycamore, because Assad was aligning. I mean, the guy is a medical doctor. He was secular. They took him out, and what we put in his place, a guy called Jolani. He was bloody Al Qaeda.
Yeah,
he was Al Qaeda. There was a reward on his head, and now he's in charge. We put him in charge. Trump as much admitted, say, I'll put him there. So we took a liberal, yes, okay, dictator. I'm not defending the guy, but at least he wasn't a religious fanatic. Do you know there is 1 million Syrian refugees that Germany accepted? There's 3 million. There was 4. It's dropped down to 3 now. Million people, Syrian people, in Turkey. So when we bomb Libya, Libyans, and all these countries that we bombed and destroyed and left failed states behind, and these people have sought safety in neighboring countries in Europe, and now our leaders are turning around and saying, well, we've got to control our borders. We're not going to let these people invade us. Well, they've got no home to go to. You've destroyed their countries. Did you not foresee this?
Yeah, and that's precisely because the major parties in these countries, to your point, have been captured by the military-industrial complex and by these corporations that want to go into these places and extract resources. And so if we eliminate these parties are sort of a unit then that can be captured by money and by power, if they don't have this mechanism of control, then it makes it at least harder to make these dumb decisions as far in terms of war and extraction.
Exactly. And that's a very valid point. Yeah.
So I guess fans of the party system, if there are any, or even folks who would defend the party system would say, well, listen, you can't ban parties. People have free association if they want to band together in some way. Why can't they do that? I'm sure there are plenty of other arguments you hear from folks about, why they would like to keep the party system. What would you say to some of them? And how do we deflect those arguments?
Yeah, I mean it's a fair question, and it's a fundamental question that we need to deal with. And the simplest answer to people who want to keep parties is that, well, nobody seems to be happy with the parties. And why we're defending something that we're not happy with? Because people on the right, on the left, which I think is an artificial division, because people don't, as we said earlier, don't belong to party and stand behind every policy a party has. But let's kind of deal with this problem that you are saying, association. That's an important point. Freedom of association. And it was James Madison, I think, that said factions are dangerous, but they're inevitable. So we need to deal, we need to manage factions. And it was 100%. And he was one of the most academics and most influential of the founding fathers. And his solution was huge republic, and effect of each faction will be diluted. So that was the answer to that solution. But we're talking about 250 years back. Remember, there was no television, no internet, no cars, no radio even. So parties fulfill their role in a low information era.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fast forward 250 years, information is abundantly available. Communication is instant. So here, the parties are not needed. Now, when we say parties, we do not need to ban parties. That's not what the book suggests. Freedom of association, absolutely fine to continue. No problem whatsoever. If Adelson wants to donate 300 million to Donald Trump's campaign, haven't got a problem with that. Haven't got a problem. They can do that all day long in every election. However, we need to tax donations above a certain level, because democracy is critical infrastructure.
Yes.
So money is distorting one vote, one person, one vote democracy. So that kind of a donation is buying influence, and as much as admitted when she's got, or Adelson's have open access to White House and what have you. They want British consulate to go to Jerusalem, and it will do so because they've donated so much money. But that aside, freedom of association is not banned. We are just saying no monopolies, because if we have a monopoly on anything, what happens? Full industry will be totally against it. If we had monopoly on anything, on water, on broadcasting, on this, on the other, why have a party monopoly on representation? So people can associate. So we voted for our representatives, and let's say you've got trade unions, you've got teachers unions, you've got business associations. They can support any candidate, and those representatives can form coalitions on issue-based issue. So assume for a second I'm a representative for District 80, you are representative for District 90. You and I vote yes on a policy on immigration. We both vote the same way. But on the next issue, I form an association with other people. You might vote yes on, let's say, abortion, and I might say no, I'm going to vote no on abortion. So that is not curbing freedom of association in any shape, form. It's actually much, much more freedom of association, because you are heard. Everybody's voices matter. And
there's no whip to keep you
no, absolutely.
That's make sure you vote against your own maybe personal ideals that to go along with the party.
That's such an important point, Scott. Apologies for overlooking it. You see, the gatekeeping doesn't stop at selecting candidates before we vote for them through who's electable, who's electable, who's got the money and funding and whatever it is, who is going to be in line with the donors' views, if you like, who's going to look after them. So not only that, but once we've chosen our representatives, and let's say I am a Republican voter in Indiana, and I voted for my representative, believing that he's going to vote against the war, and yet the party whips him to vote for the war or for cuts or for whatever it is. So he is not independent. He is not free. He is not accountable to us. The accountability is upwards to the party bosses rather than outward to the voters, because voters cannot punish it. As you've said earlier, punishing that representatives means letting the other side in, which is a nightmare scenario as we've been conditioned. So yes, the no-party system will do away with all those ills, and it provides the structure. It takes away the partisan, if you like, a polarization, and we start working in the best interest of the state, and we start debating issues not from a partisan lenses, but we start debating it from our constituents' point of view and how it benefits us. And the majority will decide if something is going to become a law. If it doesn't, it needs to be amended and changed so that it can become the law and it can command the majority vote.
Are there any geographical entities or countries or even subdivisions within countries, states, provinces, whatever, localities even, that are doing this in some sort of way that maybe we could replicate? Give us examples of how to go about putting a no party system in place.
Well, there's some states in US that vote their governors without the party label, and it works perfectly fine. So
I know. I mentioned Nebraska. They have a unicameral legislation, right? One house, no Senate there, and I understand that they elect their candidates independently, without a party label on them. Inevitably, though, they label themselves as a conservative or a liberal or a Democrat or a Republican. People know what they're getting, and it sort of behaves the same way as any of the other states in that regard. How do we prevent
that? So the point is this: once you it's the chicken and egg situation.
Yeah,
it's the chicken and egg situation. If you have a no-party system, i.e., parties are not legally given this status of going into elections and not associations. They can have any association. They can have a conservative Republican association. They can have a Democrat association, but they will need to back individual independent candidates. Just like how money motivates people, independence also is a big attraction to people. Not many people want to be whipped by the party bosses, but they have no choice. They have no choice to obey the party bosses. Otherwise, they know their career will come to an end. They won't get the funding. They won't get the approvals and electability and whatever. They won't get the party machine support behind that candidate. So it's the chicken and egg situation. But once you do away with the parties, not just in one state, but if you do it so that the party, if we have a number of independents in the federal system, out of 435 or so representatives we have in United States, if half a dozen of those, like Bernie Sanders, that given the thin margin between the two sides, they will start to be heard, and we can start getting this message out there that we are not stuck with the two-party or the party system altogether. We're not stuck with this system. You know what it reminds me of? The party system reminds me of this. We are trying to fix and improve things within the party system, within the existing system. We're trying to fix things. And that reminds me of this landlines, the telephones we have.
Yeah.
We gone from a dial to a digital one and to a fancy
We're
one.
losing the kids now. Yeah. They're like,
Yeah,
what are you
yeah.
guys talking about?
Very true, very true. But what we are suggesting equivalent is, well, we can move to the cell phones. Leave the landline. We can move to the cell phones because we now have the technology to do it. Information is abundantly available. Communication is instant. So let's go to digital phones. Let's do away with party system and go to a proper democracy, is what we are saying.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many benefits.
But those landlines are still there, right? They're
only to provide
the telephone poles are still strung. And they're like in Indiana, I mentioned this at the beginning. The major parties are codified into the state constitution. Like, so I guess we would need to rewrite laws in many places. Rewriting constitutions is an even bigger task to get to eliminate the legal status of parties. And the problem that you run into there is, well, we're in the party system, then you have to elect somebody through the party system who would eliminate the party system. They're not going to want to do that.
No, that is true. That is true. Yeah, Scott, look, what I would say to that point is that it's a fair concern. It is a fair concern. And as we've said earlier, just to repeat ourselves, that in history, nobody in power had let go of the power voluntarily or out of decency. There is a famous essay by Václav Havel in Czech Republic, Power of the Power, Voice of the Voiceless, Power of the Powerless, I think it was. Can't recall exactly. But what it did say is that under the oppressive communist system, which according to him was an oppressive system, and he says a greengrocer was displaying this sign in the window saying, "Workers of the world unite." He may have believed in it at some point, but he lost faith in it. But he did it in any way to get along. He did it because every shop on every street was doing it. So he displayed it as well. And according to Václav Havel, that was a ritual that sustained that oppressive system for so many years. Not just the oppression, but the ritual of the people that they played in. And the lesson from that essay is this: voting for existing parties, and they've made us to do it, not directly oppressively, but like you've described eloquently, because they've put it in law and so on and so forth, made it so much more difficult for anybody to come in. We participate in this ritual called voting to legitimize the system. Once we withdraw our voting once we do not participate in that ritual, the system will lose its credibility, it will lose its legitimacy. So it is the people that brought down kings, sultans, emperors. It's the people who brought about democracy. It wasn't given from the kings and the emperors, handed down out of goodwill. It was the people struggle, grassroots struggles, that brought this. I mean, there are so many people putting so much effort towards getting the system to be more accountable. We just need them to think bigger, outside the box, and say, well, we actually need an upgrade. We need an upgrade to the democracy. And people will, if they put their head to it, they will get it sorted. Now, like I've said, under the current system, we can limit the power of money by introducing donation tax. And it can be progressive. So if somebody wants to donate $5,000, $10,000, fine. But that's the cap. Anything above that, directly or indirectly, attracts a tax called democracy tax. And we don't put it in the big pot. we use it to level the playing field so that people can go in and we'll have better representatives, independent representatives. So if we can get more representatives in, but there are a lot more clever people than I am that will come up with solutions. It's just we need to get the idea across that there's a better system available. So people, I have full faith in people that they can bring this party system to an end. Don't forget, we've only given women voting rights in 1920.
Hmm.
That's some, what, 140, 150 years after men's suffrage. In UK, it was even much longer. And for all those years, it was seen as normal. It was seen, well, the system won't let us do it. Well, yes, there's a mountain to climb. But the next apex is getting rid of the parties. Because with the party system, we cannot prevent the decay in the democratic process. That is the problem.
Yeah, you mentioned the ritual, right? We go, we participate in this voting ritual, and we think, well, hey, if the Democrats won the election or the Republicans won the election, that is some sort of mandate. People are happy with the way that things are going, and they endorse that. And when it's really that's the only choice they have. Now, I do want to say, you're not saying in refusing to participate in the ritual doesn't mean don't vote. It means vote for people outside of this two-party system. Elect independents.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, 100%. Voting, your vote is the most powerful tool that you have. It's democratic, it's peaceful, and it will bring the system down. We've got to undermine the party system. Because let's face it, neither Democrats nor Republicans are happy with the system. You've seen it with the MAGA base. They're not happy with what kind of rolled out over the recent months, if you like. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and whatever you, all kind of are saying, well, this is not what we've advocated. So nobody is happy, but we're all fighting each other. We're still seeing Democrats and Republicans as other side, as opposition. And that's kind of done through the media. That's kind of amplified through social media, because that's what sells newspapers. That's what gets clicks. Decent discussions and conversations don't seem to do it. You've got to be polarized, and people have been polarized. But while we fight each other, Scott, bit like the game of squids, we're not pointing upwards. Who's pulling the strings?
Yeah,
We're pointing finger at each other.
We've got these artificial fences around us,
Yes.
so we are herded into these areas that make us easily controllable. If we tear down these fences, we can interact on a more one-to-one individual basis, and make the political process more nuanced and human, and not such a game of death.
Yeah, 100%, and really appreciate the way you put that across. At the end of the day, whether you identify as Republican or you identify as Democrat, I believe the patriotism is not loyalty to a party. The patriotism is loyalty to the country. So you and I may differ in what we feel is in the best interest of our country. And, people don't do things to harm their own house, their own country, their own family. But parties have divided families right in the middle. And that's not a good state to be in. It's artificial. We are fellow citizens. We should respect and tolerate each other's views. That's the very basic common denominator that we've got to work from.
And you do such a good job laying this out, tracing it historically from the founding fathers and their fear of faction and parties, and all the way through to the capture of our systems by money to today, and it give a very detailed sort of roadmap out of this thing. I could talk to you all day about your book, but we're coming up on the hour here. So, where can folks find it if they want to read it themselves? How can folks maybe connect with you on social media or anything if they have questions they would like to ask?
Certainly, yes. I mean, the book. Firstly, the book is available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and other bookshops, so it's quite easy to get hold of it. A digital version is available also, but not the audio. We've not done the audio just yet. In terms of connecting with me, I have a website, metin.pekin, sorry, metinpekin.com. That's available, and I'm on. I'm going to have a Substack account as well, but I have a Twitter handle, and that's all on my website. I am present on TikTok now, and getting onto the Instagram as well. So yes, social media, they're able to get hold of me and get through those channels, and I do kind of monitor it and reply back to any questions. So metinpekin.com, all the handles are there.
Very good. Yeah, we will link that in the show notes as well as links to all of your social media accounts if folks want to connect with you. But until we meet again, until we connect on those socials, Metin Pekin, thank you so much for joining me here today on the Who's Left podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Once again, that was Metin Pekin, author of Breaking Democracy's Chains, Freeing and Fortifying Democracy Against Hidden Capture, available from Paragon Publishing, wherever you get books. I will link you to bookshop.org in the show notes, where it is available for only $7.99 as an ebook. I think I can safely say the two-party system does an incredibly poor job of representing the diversity of the population in the US, UK, or anywhere else for that matter. I'd like to thank the author for introducing this concept of a no-party democracy. Decodifying legal privilege for the two major parties in state law is something I'm going to push candidates to include in their platform from now on. Thanks again to Mr. Pekin for joining us, and thank you as well. I will be back on Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. for Who's Left This Week, Indiana's only unapologetically progressive Sunday morning politics show. Tune in on YouTube, Facebook Live, and of course at progressiveindiana.net. My guests this week are State House District 47 candidate Michael Potter and writer, researcher, and creator behind The Hoosier Lemon, Sierra Martin. We'll discuss the week's top Indiana stories, plus U.S. and international news through a Hoosier lens, brew up a big pot of coffee, and come hang out with us. Lots of other good stuff on Progressive Indiana Network this week, and we can't do it without your support, so please consider contributing to Who's Left and the wider network with a paid subscription if you're able. This independent media project relies solely on the generosity of kind patrons like you to make this information available for free to everybody. Again, that's at progressiveindiana.net. We could also really use a follow on social media at Progressive Indiana Network on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at the same handle, and over on Blue Sky and TikTok, you can find us at PIN Indiana. You can find me personally at who'sleft.us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads, at Who's Left on all the rest. Send me a DM anywhere with feedback, tips, ideas, and concerns, or email me directly at scott@who'sleft.us. Finally, please forward the show to a friend and have them pass it on too. Let's keep building this project and a truly democratic state, one conversation at a time. Until the next one, this has been the Who's Left podcast. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.